All right, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be doing one example using a trans system and kind of applying all of the learning and knowledge we have from all of the previous videos. We're going to be working with the kind of Charlotte transit system. Yeah, so let's kind of go over the exercises we're going to be doing, or the tasks. So our tasks, one, are going to be to identify 5 transit hubs. 2, identify 3 patterns in the numbering scheme. 3, create an itinerary from, you'll see what these are, Ridge Road Park and Ride to Carolina Place Mall. And then 4, starting at 9 a.m. on a weekday, when approximately would you arrive to your destination? All right. If you have the materials or if you'd like to, I'll just wait for 5 seconds if you want to pause and do these on your own, and then I'll go over the answers. All right, let's go over the answers. I'm going to pull up the system map for this place. Okay, so here on your screen, you're seeing the system map. So of course, at first it looks really complicated, right? But let's just kind of try to understand what all of these things are, right? If we just look at the maps, these we can observe are kind of inset maps, right? We see labels of free service, so that's kind of just a free service area. Uptown Charlotte, that's probably another kind of inset map. Here we just have a map of a subway line or a kind of a rail line, light rail line. And here we also see some inset maps or just some kind of non-comprehensive maps. But here we have on this big map is their kind of full system map, right? So let's look for transit hubs. So let's expand our view a little bit so we can get a better look at this, right? And so immediately we see some transit hubs, right? We see some of the keywords that we've been discussing, namely transit center, park and ride, kind of some sort of train station, right? So immediately we see the words transit center. So Rosa Parks Place Community Transit Center. Maybe let's scroll around, right? Here we see, if you looked at the legend, this is kind of maybe a rail line, right? And so that's kind of another transit hub. So for example, UNC Charlotte, Maine could be a transit hub. Let's keep looking. Oh, park and ride, right? Mallard Creek Park and Ride, another one of those keywords. And we see some more transit hubs, right? North Lake Mall Park and Ride. And the one we'll be discussing later, Ridge Road Park and Ride. If you wanted to reference, if your answers were somewhat correct, you can look for the park and ride lots on this kind of upper section. And if you wanted to know if you found a community transit center, or CTC as they're called, you can just look at this table and see if it matches. And if you wanted to find a train, if you found a train station, it should be on this map here, which denotes all of the train stations on their light rail line. Okay, our next task is to identify 3 patterns in the numbering scheme. Helpfully, they have provided a table. So sometimes a table could be useful, right? And I'll kind of illustrate that right now. We see immediately that they have some sort of divisions by numbers for different services, right? So for example, 9X or 9Y, whatever you want to call it, is reserved for community bus service. Similarly, 2XX or 2YY is reserved for neighborhood shuttle service. So these are things that we kind of can immediately observe. We also observe that anything with 6, 7, or 8X or Y is some sort of express route, kind of mostly without fail, right? We see definitely that there is this kind of route 60, which does kind of break the rule, but it's just one exception. And a more kind of robust rule is to just look for any route with the letter X at the end of its name, as we talked about before, kind of X standing for express. If we wanted to look at the map, let's go down to the map, right? We want to find a pattern from the map. Let's just look, right? Here we're kind of in the presumably northern, and it is the northern section of the map. And one rule that you might come to notice is that generally towards the north of the map, route numbers are smaller than they are in the south part of the map, right? So if you look here, right, 7, 1, 22, relatively low. We do have some exceptions, of course. 18, and if we go towards the bottom of the map, right here, 2, 8, 11, 4, right, all towards the north of the map. But towards the south of the map, generally the route numbers are larger, right? 55, 42, 58, 27, 17, 14, right? 14 even is the smallest number. And of course, this rule is a little bit less solid than the other one. So if you remember the distinction we made between is the rule more helpful or the exceptions more useful, this is kind of up to you, right? Whatever would help you memorize best in this situation. All right. Now we're going to create an itinerary from Ridge Road Park and Ride to Carolina Place Mall. We'll just kind of identify the two locations. Carolina Place Mall, if you found it, is right down here. And Ridge Road Park and Ride is all the way up here, even past here, Ridge Road Park and Ride, right? So of course there are multiple itineraries, right? But I'll just go over one of them, and this is kind of the itinerary we'll be basing our discussion off of. So we start at Ridge Road Park and Ride, right? And we see two routes that are very close to Ridge Road Park and Ride, the 53 Express and the 59. Personally, I'll choose the 59, even though it's kind of a local route. The 53 Express, without any kind of extra information, we might think is an express route maybe. That might be peak only. So we'll choose the 59, being a little bit more assured. So we'll take the 59, right? We want to, of course, go south because that's our direction of travel. So we'll go south along Prosperity Church Road. We'll kind of scroll. And the first transit hub we really need is the Lynx Line, right? Or if you remember, they're kind of light rail. And so that we meet at J.W. Clay Boulevard and UNC Charlotte Station, right? If you look down here, it kind of just goes right directly to that station. So now we are on their light rail system, right? Let's see how far we can go. From J.W. Clay Boulevard and UNC Charlotte, we can go down into downtown Charlotte, down, more down, and until we hit the last stop, right? I-485 and South Boulevard. And this is actually quite close to Carolina Place Mall. If you just scroll a little bit down, we're at Carolina Place Mall. So here is where we need a route that will take us from I-485 South Boulevard Station to Carolina Place Mall. So the idea of final transit hub to destination. And of course, we're able to see that the 58 does that job quite well, right? So just to summarize again, we would take the 59 to J.W. Clay Boulevard and UNC Charlotte Link Station, take the Lynx, which is again their rail line, from J.W. Clay Boulevard and UNC Charlotte Link Station to I-485 South Boulevard Station. And then from there, we would take the 58 to Carolina Place Mall, where we would get off and arrive at our destination, right? All right, so now let's figure out how much time it would take, starting at 9 a.m. on a weekday. And here I will be pulling up the schedules for this transit system. All right, so we'll start at bus. And if you remember, our first trip was on the 59. So we'll scroll to 59 right here. And we want to take the outbound trip. Of course, this is kind of unclear at the moment, but if you were to do this on your own, just kind of ensure that your direction of travel is correct when you're choosing inbound or outbound. Just make sure you're looking at the right schedule. Of course, we are looking at a weekday, so let's show the schedule. Okay, so let's look at our time points, right? We don't have a time point for Ridge Road parking lot, but we can kind of infer it, right? So we have 3 time points, what we can assume as the first terminal, the second terminal, and then just kind of a midpoint, right? So our particular boarding locations, or Ridge Road Park and Ride, is somewhere in the middle of the point 1 and 2, right? So the origin terminal and the kind of midpoint. So we'll just keep that in mind, right? We can say it's around halfway, and that'll be good for reference. If we leave at 9 a.m., we know that, of course, we can't take the first trip, right? Because that first trip even arrives to JW Clay station before 9 a.m. So we'll probably be taking the second trip, departing at 9:26. And because we started at 9, we kind of we can kind of infer that our trip will arrive somewhere between 9:26 a.m. and 9:37 a.m. Right. So if you remember the idea of taking the 2 time points that we know and then finding the middle, we're going to use that method here to determine when our bus will arrive. Right. So then we take this trip, it arrives to JW Clay Park and Ride at 9:49 a.m. Okay, so let's remember that time, right? 9:49 a.m. is when we get to start making a transfer. So our next transfer is to the rail line, right? So let's click on rail, scroll down, and we're going to take the Lynx Blue Line in the direction of I-45 South Boulevard, weekday, of course, and we're going to show schedule. All right. So we start at JW Clay Boulevard Station. We can only depart at 9:49 a.m., right? So let's find a time that is past 9:49 a.m. Okay, so we have here 9:43, which is earlier than 9:49, and then we have a 10:03, right? Which is after 9:49. We'll probably be taking this 10:03. So we take the 10:03 from JW Clay Boulevard Station, and we want to track this until the end, until the last stop, or the terminal stop, which is where we have said we're going to get off. So let's just kind of scroll. So we just want to keep an eye out for it. 10:03. We'll just kind of scroll right to the end, and that trip will arrive at 10:59 a.m. Right, so it'll be if you could track it, it would be this trip, right? So here we have to remember this time again, right? 10:59 is when we get to make our next transfer. So we'll go back to buses, which is our kind of final bus. We're going to take the 58 as we discussed, and we're going to take that in the outbound direction. So here, right, we have a list of times. We arrived at 10:59, and so our possible trips are 11 a.m. or 11:33 a.m., right? Kind of depends on how fast you run. If you run a little faster, maybe you can take the 11 a.m. trip, therefore you'd arrive at 11:11. And if you run a little bit slower, you might take the 11:33 a.m. trip, which would get you there at 11:44. And so either 11:11 or 11:44 would be our final answer. And if you just note, here we just kind of have 2 time points, right? One being the first terminal and the second being the other terminal. So there's really not a lot of guessing. Here we just kind of can refer to the exact time. All right. So that's kind of the example. I hope there aren't any or too many questions. And I'll see you back for the practice, which will be somewhat substantially similar to this, where we'll be examining another transit agency. All right. Thank you.